I've been lucky enough to direct over 20 of Shakespeare's plays, and many of them several times. And so when I saw the intersection between Shakespeare and the opera, I felt like this would be a good challenge. The specific time setting is very clearly Risorgimento, late 19th century, really in Verdi's specific time. I am interested in the psychological world, how someone like Otello, through the prism of Boito, through the prism of Verdi, through the influence of Ibsen, is trapped inside of this psychological problem of his perception. What do I trust? What do I believe? Which thing is true and which thing is not true? That leads to a world of glass and stone. The engineering feats and capacity of the Met will be challenged by this particular set. It's a lot of moving sections which interlink and form different kinds of rooms. There are these series of walls, so it has all the epic grandeur that one would expect from a traditionalist who comes to the Met. It feels 19th century. The walls are quite epic, they're quite solid, they're quite large, and they form different spaces in which the piece can happen, and they interlink. But what's interesting is you can go inside the wall or be behind the wall and still be perceived in the piece. And it moves from a very epic opening with this phenomenal chorus to an extremely intimate final scene inside of a bedroom. And it's the progression from the epic space into the intimate space is that this particular design starts with very large walls and you really experience him arriving on the ship and a level of projection and a lot of people and that great sound. But as the piece moves along, these interlocking walls keep reshaping themselves until you find yourself in a very intimate, very confined, very small bedroom. The clothes that I do really are on the darker side because it's wintry and it's a world of Cyprus, in the middle of storms, etc. And it's nighttime and the party for a lot of it. It does feel like a lot of it's kind of nocturnal. Anytime you do clashes of culture or you deal with questions of race, it's always a question of otherness. It's I'm on one side and you're on the other. I have this color, you have that color. I have this belief, you have that belief. And it's when you're safe inside of your universe, your set of assumptions, and somebody comes into that set of assumptions. It's usually harder for the person who comes into your world because they don't necessarily know how to trust what you say about them. So I think that the influence of pure race, the assumptions of pure race are less the problem of Verdi than they are of Shakespeare. Shakespeare kind of deals with that a bit more concretely. It's a bit more like openly racist text in that sense. Verdi's more concerned about what do I believe and not believe. Well, I've had a little bit of time with Antonenko, and he's amazing. He learned the part by spending 2 years with Riccardo Muti being taught the part. So he has a deep, deep understanding of Verdi and a capacity for the nuances of this character in a way that very, very few singers in the world, maybe nobody in the world has, and that's pretty extraordinary. I was lucky enough to work with Sonia last year. She's just spectacular. She's unbelievably beautiful, pure sound, and great gracefulness as an actor, and extreme openness and vulnerability. Junko is somebody who I've seen here in Rigoletto. He has the kind of extremely ferocious masculinity that I think is very good for Iago. If you look at the history of theater in general, the achievement of the Renaissance is to elevate certain stories, particularly the four great tragedies, to a level of accomplishment and voice that hadn't been experienced in Western literature. And when Verdi and when Boito took this form and applied it to the level of tragedy that was accomplished by Shakespeare, I tend to believe that the entire capacity for tragic expression was elevated again and brought to a higher level. So that in this particular opera, you have something that magnifies Shakespeare even more and has a larger capacity for the dimensions of the tragic character through voice.